All right, so Troy O'Brien here with Red Zone Reader, and accompanying me, Scott Huber as well. And we're going to be talking a little bit about football today. So it's almost football season. I'm thinking we're going to have to mainly center our conversation today about the Dallas Cowboys, a team that we both know and love. Scott, in particular, talking a little bit more about Zach Martin and the big deal that he just signed, making him the highest paid guard in NFL history. So he just signed a 6-year, $84 million deal with $40 million guaranteed, which is insane. I don't even know what I would spend $40 million on, and I doubt he knows what he's going to spend $40 million on. Another big-name free agent that just signed this year was Kirk Cousins, and you mentioned before to me in a text, he signed an $84 million deal as well. But
exact same salary.
Yeah, but for just half the time, just 3 years. And it really goes to show...
3 years, and it's fully guaranteed.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show the money that you have to put into a quarterback in this league.
They're especially like a very valued position, and that just goes to show, especially it being a all-guaranteed deal, excuse me. Zach Martin's, I understand, was like $40 million guaranteed, if I remember correctly. That's for 6 years. So it's kind of crazy when you put it into perspective, because we're really looking, I mean, by we, I mean the Dallas Cowboys are looking to really build up the pieces and everything. We're showing that, you know, of course it's a market thing where, you know, the best guys get paid more every single year. But by investing in the top paid center, one of the top paid tackles.
Yeah, and Tyron Smith,
you know, it just goes to show how much we're valuing our offensive line, not just one position, but for a unit.
Yeah, and when you think about it, you're spending so much money on
the offensive line.
So much money on so many different players, because there's 5 people in the offensive line rather than just the one position at quarterback. But that quarterback is, what he means to the team is unquantifiable. You cannot say, well, he's worth this much money because he can make the plays that can keep your team in the game. The difference between that quarterback and the quarterback that can make the plays to win the game. But then you can argue the fact that that quarterback needs a good offensive line. Without the offensive line, the quarterback is going to be just subpar. I mean, give Tom Brady a line of high school football players, and I guarantee you he's not getting close to the playoffs.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, just look at the Giants last season. They had probably one of the worst offensive lines I've seen in a very long time. They had Eric Flowers at left tackle, who just kind of gave up. Bobby Hart at right tackle, and he was off the team before the end of the season, I believe. And Justin Pugh and whoever their center was, they're already off the team. Just kind of goes to show how much they really valued those guys by not re-signing them. And Eli took a ton of hits. He took a lot of blame that really shouldn't have been on him, but the offensive line gave up on him. Do you remember when I'm just thinking of this right now. Do you remember Paul Perkins, the running back who was supposed to
for the Giants,
the future running back for the Giants?
I do.
I don't think he ever ended up scoring an NFL touchdown.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because Perkins isn't the greatest back in the world, but I think it's because the offensive line really let him down. And the offense ultimately, I mean, besides Odell Beckham being Odell Beckham, it kind of fell flat. And if you look at the Cowboys in comparison, you know, everything's riding high on their shoulders. Dak's rookie year was phenomenal because he had all the protection. He had Ezekiel Elliott, who was paving the way through, and the offensive line was creating holes for him. So his life was a lot easier. I'd be very curious to see how Dak and Eli would be if their roles were separated.
Yeah, so comparing Giants offensive line and the Cowboys offensive line, because we've spent so much money in Dallas on that offensive line, Zeke Elliott, I'm not saying he's not a great running back. He is one of the top 5 running backs in the NFL. But I think if you stuck any running back behind that offensive line, they're going to be better than they would be if they were behind, say, the Giants offensive line. That, in terms, makes Dak Prescott better, too, because he's got the time in the pocket. And personally, for me, even as a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'm not entirely sold on the fact that Dak Prescott is a mobile quarterback. I think that he prefers to be in the pocket and find the open down. He's got the threat to run, but I think that he prefers to be pocket passer.
I agree with that. And I think it's kind of an asset in that kind of case, because there were some points in the season last year where Dak would primarily be in the pocket. He would run out if he needed to, but they really used the lack of running on Dak's side to an advantage, because I remember just one game in particular. I mean, it's a play that jumps out at me, but the Green Bay game, the touchdown that would have won the game for the Cowboys had Aaron Rodgers not pulled it. Aaron Rodgers thrown a touchdown pass to Devontae Adams.
Don't remind me.
That game-winning touchdown would have been a Dak Prescott read option. And they use those so well. They really utilize Dak's running when nobody's really expecting it.
Yeah. Now, talking about, Dak Prescott and his ability, a lot of that, the plays that they choose, Dak doesn't choose those in the huddle, although this season he probably will be having more of a say. But that's the job of the offense coordinator, Scott Linehan.
I think another thing is that when Dak was looking down the field, a lot of the time he was looking for Dez. Dez was the clear-cut number one go-to guy. And now that he's not there, who do you have left? You have Alan Hearns now, who was signed. You have Terrence Williams,
and Cole Beasley
in the slot, and Deontay Thompson was even brought in. So they have kind of a versatile set of receivers now, but there's not really a clear-cut number one guy. So I think this is going to open up Dak Prescott's options. He's not going to look immediately to one person. He's going to look all over the field.
Yeah.
He knows he's going to find the wide-open guy rather than try and force it to the guy who makes those crazy, acrobatic, freakish catches like Des Bryant. So I think it's going to benefit a lot. And, of course, the main focus is going to be on the run game, too. I think the offense is still focused on Ezekiel Elliott.
I agree.
Go far because of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if we get back to the running game, something that we were missing last year, this team is going to be a totally different team. But something that you can also mention now that they're
with Zeke being in for 16 games.
Yeah. If he's there for the whole year, which I'm assuming that he will be, he's a difference maker again, going back because of that offensive line. But let's take a look at the fact that
I was looking at a stat today. Sorry, just one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
He played in only 10 games, and he was just shy of 1,000 yards. I believe he had 983 off the top of my head.
Wow, that's insane.
And he only played in 10 games, which I think is huge.
Yeah, it does. And whether it's because of him, because of the offensive line, you really won't know because, we didn't have Zeke for like half the season last year, and we obviously didn't have the same running game as we did with him. But going back to the fact that there is no number one wide receiver, we will have to rely on the run game a little bit more. At least we know what we have in Dak and Zeke, but the rest of the team is pretty young. And we've still got a lot of money invested in players that are not on the team anymore. We're still paying Tony Romo. We're still paying Des Bryant. We're still paying Jason Witten because we had contracts where they were guaranteed money and it eats up cap space. So going into this season, you're kind of thinking, I don't know what we're going to get from the Cowboys this season. It reminds me of back when when Tony Romo got injured and Dak Prescott came in. Right when Tony Romo got injured, I immediately wrote off the Cowboys. I go, this season is going to be terrible to watch. I've seen Tony Romo get injured before. It's going to be terrible. And you know what? They turned it around. Dak Prescott was phenomenal. And it was probably the most exciting season for me as a Cowboys fan to watch since the 2014 season when DeMarco Murray led the league in rushing. Do you think that it's possible that...
Oh, my God, what a time that was.
Do you think it's possible that we're going to get something crazy out of the Cowboys that no one is expecting? Or do you think we might be 9-7?
I think a little bit of both. I think saying that anything crazy happening to the Cowboys is a little far-fetched at this point because we've seen the crazy happen. We've seen the impossible happen in a fourth-round conditional pick leading the team to the playoffs and leading the NFC.
Right there.
I think if there's anything we can expect, it's going to be a revamped offense. Maybe not quite the most disappointing 9-17 we've ever seen like last year, but if everything goes according to plan, I think we're going to have a pretty good offense that can lead us to maybe 10 or 11 wins. But I think a lot of that relies on our defense, not just our offense. And if you look back at the defense in 2016, we had guys like Barry Church who would make tackles like crazy. We had Sean Lee, who was healthy for 16 games as opposed to, I think, 12 this year. We had Brandon Carr and Morris Claiborne, who probably had the greatest season of his career in 2016. And right now we have guys in our secondary like Jordan Lewis, Chidobe Awuzie, and we don't really even know who our safety aside Jeff Heath is going to be. Our secondary is very young.
Xavier Woods at secondary possibly. Who knows? Maybe we'll still get Earl Thomas from the Seahawks. Right. I have never heard a storyline so actively pursued, which I just don't believe whatsoever. But that's besides the fact. I don't think we're getting Earl Thomas. But we don't know who's there in the secondary. Our defense is really unproven, and that's a big question mark we have going into the season.
Yeah, and I think maybe not the most important thing, but actually it is the important thing. It's Sean Lee's presence.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can go back to the Zeke suspension and everything and see that we lost 3 games with Zeke and we won 3 without him. I think we lost maybe 3 or 4 games out of 3 or 4 games with Sean Lee out of the lineup. He's an incredibly important part of the defense. He used to play the middle linebacker because he used to play every single part of the field. He was the quarterback on defense. Now with first-round pick Leighton Vander Esch?
Yeah, Leighton Vander Esch.
I still don't know how to pronounce it. Etch. Okay, like Etch-a-Sketch.
Yes.
But But Lee is such an important part, and if we have him, then I think we'll be fine on the defensive side. But who knows? Maybe Vander Esch is going to be that guy at middle linebacker who will make all the tackles instead of Lee. Lee will stay healthy, and will prosper because of that.
Here's something.
But I think it all comes down to Sean Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, we can look at Jalen Smith and Vander Esch and everything and boost them up because they're first-round worthy talents.
Yeah.
But Lee is above and beyond. He might be the best player on the team. I'll go as far as to say that.
Absolutely. Especially now that Jason Witten and Des Bryant are gone, I think that aside from the offensive line, Sean Lee, the best player that makes a significant difference when he makes a big play. But Sean Lee, something that you have to mention that he does have injury issues and age is now not on his side. He's 31 years old. Drafting Leighton Vander Esch, you're thinking, well, this guy, just look at him. He's huge. He kind of looks like a Sean Lee prototype. I'm hoping that he can really absorb the knowledge that Sean Lee can give him. I'm hoping that Jalen Smith takes a big, uphill climb in what he's contributing to the team. But you really just don't know. But the defense is really a big question mark because they're so young. I personally believe in our young cornerbacks. I think our cornerbacks are underrated, severely underrated. I think that they're able to be lockdown corners, but still right now just a little bit younger. But, you get the defensive pressure on the line, which we've improved significantly in the past 2 years. Now we have DeMarcus Lawrence, who all of a sudden, now that it's contract year, he decides to have second in the league in sacks. Taco Charlton.
Oh, yeah, and a little pressure from first-round pick Taco Charlton, too.
Yeah.
As soon as they drafted him, he decided to flip the switch.
Yeah, so there's some players who, haven't really panned out to be exactly what we want to be, and there's a lot of question marks in health issues. Right now, we're just in a mini camp. You can't say that this team is going to be all healthy by the time we reach OTAs because who knows? And it could make a difference. One player goes down, Sean Lee goes down to start the season, and Leighton Vander Esch has to start. And let's say he doesn't do as well as he could have, then he hurts his confidence, and for the rest of the year, he's thinking he can't play in this league, and that'll hurt you as a player for the future. It really will.
Yeah, no doubt. Especially with the amount of depth we have at linebackers. Just for example, I can't really think of any other linebacker who sits behind those three guys, Smith, Lee, and Vander Esch. I mean, I think there's a guy named Joe Thomas, but I mean,
we took him in free agency.
I couldn't tell you anything about the guy. It's just we have such a lack of depth there. I think we drafted a guy in the 6th round.
Yeah, it's tough to tell what we've got at the linebacker position. So here we go. Yeah. Let's move along a little bit, not outside the realm of Cowboys, but just to the NFC East. What team are you most afraid of in the NFC East? Because you could arguably say Philadelphia Eagles, of course, because they won the Super Bowl. They look like a team primed to make another Super Bowl run. But really, being totally honest, the New York Giants scare me the most.
Oh, yeah. They do. They do for me, too. I mean, just going back to the beginning of the topic, when we were talking at the beginning of the segment, talking about their terrible offensive line.
Yeah, it's been revamped.
Signing Nate Solder to a record-breaking deal, like 4 years, $70 million or something like that, to be the left tackle, which is already 1,000 times better than Eric Flowers.
Oh, Eric Flowers is competing for a job at this point. He was terrible.
Oh, yeah. He was. There are reports that he had given up on the team.
Yep.
He just wasn't really a contributor anymore. Total bust, it seems like. But to make matters worse for everybody else in the NFC East, the Giants went out and they drafted Will Hernandez.
I know. I was so mad. I was mad because Will Hernandez, I watched him in the combine.
To the second round.
He was fantastic. He should have been a first-round pick, but he's a guard, and people started taking tackles. And, the fact that he fell to the Giants, who in the first round, let me remind you, took a guy by the name of Saquon Barkley, whose thighs are about the size of a Mack truck.
How did we not even mention him?
Was behind a good offensive line, a running back behind a good offensive line, just like we mentioned before with Zeke and the Cowboys' offensive line. That's a dangerous combination. The difference between the Cowboys and the Giants, look at their wide receivers. It's insane. If they have a good... And then look at the Giants' defense. Their defense has been phenomenal in years past. So the Giants are definitely a team that scares me.
It's going to be interesting, though, for their defense because they're going without Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who has been a staple for that defense for years.
A captain.
And I'm very anxious to see how Eli Apple transitions into, I believe, his 3rd year.
Yeah, I've heard that there was some rumors that he might be traded.
He's shown flashes, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah, no, I just heard that he wasn't really syncing with the team as well as they wanted to when the team wasn't very good. Everybody has that negative personality in the locker room that you don't want to be there, but when you're losing, it's tough. And he was apparently one of the players who didn't really handle it very well. But then you've got,
Right.
Janoris Jenkins in quarterback on the other side. You've got Snacks Harrison on the defensive line. Giants.
Olivier Vernon, too.
Yeah, and then Giants. Who was the linebacker that they got from the Rams?
Alec Ogletree.
Yeah, Ogletree. So the linebacker position for the Giants kind of had the same problem with the Cowboys as it was basically inexistent, but adding Alec Ogletree, that's a huge upgrade. So instantly I'm looking at this Giants team and going, where is the weakness? And I don't really know.
Yeah, it's really hard to pinpoint, I got to say. Although, I have to say, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I remember last year in 2017, before the season began, the Giants were coming off this ginormous season where they made the playoffs. They were just a little bit behind the Cowboys. They beat them twice. They were one of two teams who beat the Cowboys that regular season, and they beat them twice. And everybody had very high expectations for the Giants. Oh, well, Beckham's going to do this.
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall's going to do that.
Uh-huh.
The secondary is going to be incredible. And they fell flat.
They
I believe
sucked.
they
Yeah, they
finished
sucked.
3-13 or 4-12. And they ended up with the second pick in the draft. So
Yeah.
there might be some kinks in their system right now. They might have to perfect a few things, especially on the defensive side of the ball. But just with the offensive line upgrading and Saquon Barkley in the backfield, they're going someplace very, very quickly, and they could be NFC East contenders already.
But then Cowboys and Giants both have to, obviously the elephant in the room here, the Philadelphia Eagles, they look like they've gotten even better. Adding Michael Bennett in the offseason, are you kidding me? Then they get their starting quarterback back, and they still retain Nick Foles, their Super Bowl MVP. Like, it doesn't look like this team necessarily got better, but they did not get worse, and they added the confidence. And I know they're a team that wants to see the Super Bowl again. They want to bring it to the city. Philadelphia Eagles fans are insane. Do I think that the Giants and the Eagles are bad teams? No. Do I think that the Cowboys can beat them? Maybe. I really don't know what to expect. I think
it
that
depends.
the NFC East is going to be a great division.
Every single year. It's very hard to predict. I just want to go back to the Eagles point and their inspiration for winning games. They haven't won a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz as their quarterback.
True.
And he was supposed to be MVP. He was supposed to be the guy that led them to the promised land. It ended up being Nick Foles.
Yeah, crazy.
But they want to do it for Carson. Carson wants to have that taste for himself.
They do.
So if he comes back strong from his ACL tear, I think the Eagles are in very, very good shape, especially with new wide receiver Mike Wallace.
Oh, yeah.
They signed for like a bargain deal.
Yeah, they got rid of Torrey Smith and they brought in Mike Wallace for a fraction of the price. And then they went and got Michael Bennett for their already disruptive defensive line. So they're going to be a scary team. The Giants are going to be a scary team. And guess what? Out of those teams, those are 4 games on the Cowboys schedule. As a Cowboys fan, I'm not scared. I'm excited for those games because they're going to be games you can sit down, watch. You get nervous. They're going to be good games. The only problem is when you lose to a rival, it feels 10 times worse.
It's probably the worst feeling in the entire NFL season besides the playoff loss. Losing to a rival team, especially one in the NFC East, I cannot tell you how many times I went to sleep very, very angry.
Oh, yeah. There was a time, it was like a 3-week or a 3-year span that we had win and in playoff situations, and every single year we lost to a different team in the NFC East. And I remember just sitting in my bed.
Every single team, we went 8-8.
Yeah. God, those were the worst 3 years of football for me. And then 2014 turned it around, had the off year when Tony Romo got injured. Then Dak comes in, saves the day. And yay, special. Yep. Only team that I'm really not scared of is the Redskins. I just don't like Alex Smith doesn't scare me. And their defense.
I think the Redskins right now are in the exact position they want to be. Alex Smith may not be the most scary quarterback, but let's not forget he was playing at an MVP level to start the season last year.
People all underestimate Alex Smith. He is a good quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean maybe it was just because Andy Reid was his head coach. Maybe it's because he had Jamal Charles and Kareem Hunt and all of them as his running backs. Maybe he had a terrific defense for his entire career. But I just can't underestimate the Redskins. They're in a very under-the-radar position. They're the most under-the-radar team in the NFL right now, I believe.
Okay, but I just don't think that
Alex
they
Smith
can...
knows how to win. He's got Samaje Perine, and he's got Darius Geis in the backfield.
I love Geis. I love Geis.
I can't sleep on their offensive line either with Trent Williams, and
Really?
a couple of guys who I don't know the names of, but they're really good.
Mm-hmm. I'm just gonna. I just have to respectfully disagree because although the Redskins will probably win their handful of games, they have to play the Cowboys, the Eagles, and the Giants. That's like basically half their season, and I don't think they can win those games. I think that they're going to. I think they're going to go winless in the NFC East.
Wow, that's very bold. I think I could think a little differently.
Okay. Well, hey, we will have to.
They might surprise us a little bit.
But I will
There's
say,
always that one team that surprises us.
Okay.
The Redskins might be that team.
Hey, I will totally. I'll agree. I'll respectfully agree to disagree. But I
That's
think
fair. That's okay to debate.
But just as kind of an ending point here, little fantasy. My prediction: Darius Geis, I think, is going to possibly be Rookie of the Year.
Really?
I'm saying that Darius Geis and Saquon Barkley are going to have similar seasons, and he's going to be explosive. I love Darius Geis. I can't believe he fell to the second round. I think he wound up in a situation where there's really no other running back to challenge him as far as what he can contribute. Maybe saying Rookie of the Year is a little, it might be blowing it out of the water, but I think that he will definitely be a starter in all fantasy leagues by week 5.
I think that's very bold because we saw Samaje Perine step up a little bit towards the end of his rookie season.
Smaller
we saw
back.
Chris Thompson, who emerged as kind of a Darren Sproles kind of guy. He was able to catch the ball, and he ran it too.
Yeah.
I think at one point he was leading the team in receptions before he went on IR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
Samaje Perine.
It's not to say that Geis isn't a talented guy at all. He could very well have gone in the first round. I'm frankly very shocked that he went at the end of the second. I think he's going to need to work he needs to work his way up on that offense, though. He needs to prove that he can outrun Perine, which I think he can.
I think Perine is easy.
And show that he can catch as well, something that Thompson does so well.
Yeah, I think Thompson and him could be a dangerous
duo.
duo.
In a committee. I'm not sure if he's going to break free from that committee, though. That's just me. I think Barkley is the runaway Rookie of the Year.
Agree. Hard agree on that one. Yeah, I think that now that you mentioned it, I actually kind of forgot about Chris Thompson, and I think that he and Geis could be a phenomenal duo if they can work well together.
Yeah.
But either way,
Peyton's Man-Thing, a.k.a. Jordan Magenta, won our fantasy league last year, and he had Chris Thompson in his lineup.
Yeah, I know.
He won a couple of games because of him.
Yeah, I know. He had some crazy, huge games, but I mean, hey, the one thing that we definitely both can agree on is that the NFC East this season is going to be a phenomenal season. Tough to tell who's going to wind up there, what the records are going to be, because any of those teams, really, you could say they're going to the Super Bowl right now, and I would believe you.
Yeah.
So
that's true. As always, it's the most wild card division in the NFL, and it never ceases to amaze me.
It really is. So, Scott, I think that's all the time we've got for today, but thank you for calling up today. I hope that our listeners enjoyed hearing the first edition of your Red Zone listener, Redzone Express, whatever we end up deciding to call it.
The no-name Red Zone.
Yeah, but again, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Huber, I'm Troy O'Brien. Closing statement, Scott, anything you'd like to add?
Go Cowboys, but go football.
Excellent. And with that, we'll see you next week.
That was the most I got.